The wind rolled across the wide Wyoming flats like a living thing, screaming through the cottonwoods and dragging needles of snow behind it. Folks in the mountain towns called it a blue howler, or one of those blizzards that came sudden, fast, and punished anyone caught outside. Most people with sense stayed home, shuttered their windows, kept close to their fire, and prayed for their livestock to make it through the night. But life didn't always offer choices, especially not to men like Eli Carter, a 33-year-old single father raising an 8-year-old boy on a patch of land more stubborn than fertile. The roof of their small cabin groaned under the pounding gusts. Snow raced across the yard, piling against the barn and drifting over the half-finished fence. Eli had been working on that fence for near a week, trying to keep predators out and the young mare in. But now the weather had turned, and the whole world outside the window looked white and dangerous. Eli threw another log into the stove. "Storms mean tonight," he muttered. From the table near the fire, little Tom looked up from his whittling. "Do we got enough firewood, Pa?" "Enough for tonight," Eli said. "Maybe another 2-3 days if it don't get worse." Tom nodded, trusting his father's word the way only children could. He was a quiet boy, small for his age, with a mop of shaggy blonde hair that always seemed to fall into his eyes. His face carried a softness that reminded Eli of Tom's mother, a softness Eli feared the world would harden too soon. She had passed 6 winters earlier, leaving him with a baby in his arms and a grief that haunted the corners of every quiet room. Eli pulled his coat closer and looked out the window again. Something nagged at him, a feeling he couldn't quite name, like the wind was carrying more than snow. He rubbed his rough jaw and tried to shake it off. But then he heard it. At first he thought it was just the wind, a trick of sound made by nature's fury. But no other noise came again. A faint cry. A voice. Thin, desperate. Eli's spine straightened. "Tom," he said quietly, "stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Understand?" Tom nodded, eyes wide. "What is it?" "Someone's out there." Without wasting another second, Eli grabbed his hat, his heavy winter coat, and the lantern. He shoved his boots on, opened the door, and stepped into a wall of icy wind so strong it nearly took his breath away. Snow slapped against his face like handfuls of gravel. He lowered his head and pushed into the storm, following the faint direction of the cry. "Hello," he shouted. "Anyone out here?" The wind swallowed his voice. He kept moving. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The cold bit through his coat, into his bones. Just as he started to wonder if he'd imagined it, his lantern caught sight of something dark half buried in the snow. A horse. Dead. And beside it someone lying face down, unmoving. Eli dropped to his knees. "Mom? Sir? Can you hear me?" He turned the figure over gently, brushing snow from their face. A woman. Her skin was pale as the snow around her, her lips blue and trembling. She wore clothing far too fine for frontier traveler, a wool cloak embroidered with silver thread, gloves soft and expensive, boots made of polished leather. What in God's name was a woman like her doing out here in a blizzard, riding alone? Her eyelids fluttered. "Help a broken bar," she whispered, barely audible. "I got you," Eli said, scooping her into his arms. "Just hold on." He carried her back toward the cabin with the wind clawing at his back and the snow blinding his eyes. His legs burned, his lungs seared, but he didn't stop until he reached the door. He kicked it open with his boot. Tom jumped to his feet. "Pa. Get blankets." Eli barked. He laid the woman near the fire, stripped her cloak off, and wrapped her in every blanket they had. Tom brought more, piling them over her until she looked like a bundle of fabric with a face poking out. Eli rubbed her hands, trying to bring warmth back into the freezing flesh. She shivered violently, then slowly and gradually her breathing steadied. "What happened to her?" Tom asked. "Storm caught her," Eli said. "Lucky we heard her." The woman stirred. "Where Broken Bar am I?" "Safe," Eli said simply. "You're at my homestead. I'm Eli Carter, and this here's my boy, Tom. Storm's bad, so you'll need to stay until it passes." Her eyes drifted to him, dazed but grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. "My name is Clara." Her voice had a softness to it, refined and delicate, betraying a background far from the rugged frontier. Eli nodded but didn't pry. She needed warmth, not questions. Hours passed before she regained enough strength to sit upright. Tom fetched warm broth, and Clara drank it slowly, her hands trembling as she held the cup. She kept staring at the cabin, as if the wooden walls and simple furnishings were foreign to her. "You saved my life," she said quietly to Eli. "Anyone would have," he replied. But she smiled faintly, as if she knew that wasn't true. The storm raged through the night. Wind howled like wolves circling a dying fire. But inside, the small cabin felt almost peaceful. Clara slept by the hearth. Tom curled up under quilts. Eli sat by the window, keeping watch. He didn't know why, but something about the woman unsettled him, not in a bad way, but in the way one might be unsettled standing too close to a fire that warmed but also threatened to burn. There was grace in her features, refinement in her posture even while unconscious. She wasn't a rancher's daughter or a traveling schoolteacher. She came from money, he was certain. Yet she'd been alone on the trail in a raging storm. Why? By morning, the blizzard had softened to a gentle fall of snowflakes drifting like feathers. Clara, now rested and warm, stood near the stove with a blanket draped over her shoulders. Eli was chopping wood outside when she stepped out onto the porch. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "Ground's slick." "I'm feeling much better," she replied. "Thanks to you." Eli set the axe down. "Where were you headed?" She hesitated. "I was a Broken Bar traveling to Dawson's Crossing. That's 3 days' ride from here. Storm like last night, you wouldn't have made it. I realize that now." He raised an eyebrow. "Most folks wait out weather like that." She gave him a small, mysterious smile. "Let's say I'm not most folks." Tom burst out of the cabin, a scarf trailing behind him. "Pa. Look. The snow's up to the porch." He hopped off the steps and sank to his knees. Clara laughed softly at the sight. "He's full of energy." "Always," Eli said. Tom turned to Clara. "Can we build a snow fort?" Eli started to object, but Clara surprised him by kneeling in the snow. "I'd love to." For the next hour, the three of them worked together, Tom laughing, Clara smiling more freely than she seemed used to, Eli watching the two of them with a strange warmth building inside his chest. Clara got snow on her hair, on her gloves, on her nose, and she looked a Broken Bar happy. Simple, unguarded happiness. But beneath her smile, Eli still sensed something heavy in her. Something she wasn't saying. Later, when Tom went inside, Clara approached Eli by the woodpile. "I should tell you the truth," she began. "I wasn't just passing through the territory. A Broken Bar ran away." Eli stiffened. "From danger?" "From expectation," she said quietly. "From a life chosen for me. My family is a Broken Bar, well known, wealthy, influential. And they arranged a marriage for me to a man twice my age, someone I didn't love." She looked away. "I fled before they could force me into it." Eli blinked. He hadn't imagined she came from money, but hearing it confirmed still surprised him. That's a dangerous thing to run from alone. I didn't think the storm would come so soon. She smiled sadly. Rich doesn't mean wise. Eli looked down. You're safe here. No one comes out this way unless they're lost. Thank you, she whispered. That evening, Tom insisted Clara read him a story from one of the old books they kept. Her voice was soft, melodic, bringing the characters to life with a grace Eli had never heard. Tom watched her with wide, adoring eyes. Eli watched her with something else entirely, in admiration, perhaps. Or the beginning of something he wasn't sure he was allowed to feel. When Tom fell asleep, Clara gently closed the book and placed it beside him. Eli met her gaze across the room. The fire cast warm hues across her face. You're good with him, Eli said finally. I like children, she replied. And he's a wonderful boy. He deserves more than I can give, Eli murmured. Clothes wear thin. Food gets scarce. Winter's rough, and ranch don't bring enough coin. But I try. Clara stepped closer. You give him love. That's more than many wealthy homes offer. Her words struck deeper than she probably intended. Days passed as the storm kept them snowbound together. They fell into a rhythm of cooking, tending the animals, helping with chores. Clara was no stranger to hard work despite her background. She learned quickly, laughed easily, and found unexpected joy in simple tasks. And Eli found himself drawn to her in a way he hadn't been drawn to anyone since his wife passed. He tried to ignore it. Tried to tell himself she belonged to another world. But feelings didn't ask permission before growing. Clara noticed the small things, how Eli fixed Tom's collar before breakfast, how he always took the worst portion of a meal so others had more, how he stared into the distance sometimes with a sorrow he tried to hide. She saw him more clearly than he liked. On the fourth morning, the snow had settled enough for travel. Clara stood at the edge of the yard, staring at the horizon. I'll have to move on, she said softly. I can't endanger you by staying. You're not endangering us. You don't know that. She looked torn, as if leaving pained her deeply. Where will you go? Eli asked. I'm not sure yet. Eli swallowed hard. Clara broken by, you're safe here as long as you need. And if anyone comes looking, Eli? No, she said firmly but gently. You've done more for me than I could ever repay. I won't bring trouble to your door. Before Eli could respond, the sound of horses echoed from the tree line. Riders approached, the three of them, dressed in fine coats and polished saddles. Clara's face drained of all color. My family's men, she whispered. Eli stepped in front of her. What do they want? To drag me back. The men reached the yard. One dismounted, glaring at Eli. We're looking for Miss Clara Davenport, he said sharply. She's disappeared from her estate. Her father is worried sick. Reward for her safe return. Eli's jaw tightened. He glanced at Clara. Fear flickered in her eyes, but also defiance. You got proof you're who you say? Eli asked. The man scoffed. Family crest on the saddle. Signed letter from her father. Enough for you. Eli considered it. Clara stepped forward. I won't go back, she said loudly. Tell my father I'm safe. But I'm not returning. Miss Davenport, the man growled, you don't have a choice. Eli moved, placing himself between them. She said number. The men bristled. You interfering, rancher? Looks like it. Tension crackled in the cold air. Tom peeked out from behind the door, watching with wide eyes. Clara stepped beside Eli. If you take me, she said, it'll be against my will and in front of witnesses. The leader hesitated. He valued a reward, but not enough to drag Clara fighting and screaming where others could see. "This isn't over," he warned. Eli didn't budge. The men glared, then finally rode off, snow kicking up behind them. Clara exhaled shakily. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want you involved." "Too late for that," Eli said with a faint smile. "But I ain't sorry." Tears filled her eyes. "They'll come again. Then you stay until we figure something safer." Clara looked up at him, help flickering. "Are you sure?" "Reckon I am." That night, after Tom fell asleep, Clara sat beside Eli by the fire. The warmth glowed between them, soft and intimate. "You risked everything for me today," she said quietly. "I just did what felt right." She touched his hand softly. "Eli, a broken bar. My family is wealthy beyond measure. Old money. Land, businesses, investments. And yeah, well, I am their only heir. That's why my marriage was arranged." Eli stilled. "Richest." She wasn't just wealthier, she was one of the richest women in the region. "You didn't tell me," he murmured. "I didn't want you to treat me differently." Eli looked into her eyes, steady and sure. "I don't care about your money. I care about you." Her breath caught. "And Tom," she whispered. "He's grown so attached." "He ain't the only one," Eli admitted softly. Silence settled around them, not empty, but full of unspoken truths. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "I want to stay," she whispered. "If you'll have me. Not because I owe you my life, but because I've never felt more myself than here." Eli swallowed hard. "This ain't an easy life." "I don't want easy," she said. "I want real." Eli turned to her, and for the first time in years, allowed himself to hope. Allowed himself to imagine a future with laughter in the cabin, warmth in the winter, a partner beside him, not out of obligation, but out of choice. Clara reached for his hand, lacing her fingers with his. Outside, the last remnants of the storm drifted down like blessing. Inside, a new beginning took root, a quiet, fragile, but full of promise. Eli Carter had saved a stranger in a blizzard, not knowing she was the richest woman in half the territory. But as he held her hand beside the fire, he realized something far more important. She was also the woman who might finally heal the parts of him long frozen by grief. And in that cabin, in the heart of winter, wealth meant nothing beside the warmth of found family and the courage of choosing love.